Well, good evening, this is Hound Dog Steve, wishing you a very pleasant evening. And, well, the word is out, and I would strongly suggest to our politicians that they had better start running for the hills. And why is that, you may ask? Well, the article that I'm about to read from the National Post is basically from 26 businessmen, specialists and doctors calling the government out on this whole outbreak. The numbers are out now, the data is in, and we have been in lockdown for over 2 months. The entire economy has ground to a halt, and I think that we are finally breaking into this idea that this is not any worse a flu than in any other year. Now, this chart, I've been showing this chart a lot to people because this is where the government gets some of its data from, and you can see it is absolutely 100% conclusive. We've done the second wave. Compared to the last 10 seasons of flu, it's a little higher, yes, than a normal flu season, but there have been 2 flu seasons higher than this one. One of those, I believe, was H1N1. Anyways, you can definitely see that it's following exactly the same trajectory that every flu season follows, and it is right in the middle of the pack. It is neither the worst nor the best season. And I think that we can all see this with our own eyes. The reports that are coming out now of the hospitals that are empty. We were supposed to shut down for 2 weeks to allow the hospitals to prepare for this monstrous wave. The predictions were absolutely through the roof. And of course we've had these idiots like Neil Ferguson. He is this doctor from the Imperial College in London. It was his computer modelling that came out with these outrageous predictions in the first place, and now that they look back and check his computer modelling and of course every other prediction that he has made, he has been so far off the mark. It has been unbelievable. But it's basically carried on. It doesn't matter whether it is Neil Ferguson or whether it is Tedros from the WHO or our own Theresa Tam in Canada here. They have still perpetuated this whole wrong predictive model, even though the data consistently showed that they were wrong. In my own area, for example, in Peterborough, I happen to know a nurse who works in the Peterborough Hospital in that particular ward. It's empty. There is 1 positive case and there are 2 suspected. Everything else has been put off. All elective surgery, all of the testing, every other facet of that hospital has been completely switched off, and that ward is completely empty, even though they're doing testing. I think they've done over 6,500 tests, and they still haven't turned up more than 73 cases in total, and 67 of those have been resolved. Okay, so that is 6 active cases, and 2 people have passed away, both of which were seniors. We now know that this affects seniors the most, and nursing homes in particular, and one sliver of light in all of this is that it has shone a light onto the whole nursing home crisis, the understaffing and the terrible situations in which these people have to work in. And quite often they're working 2 and 3 jobs, these women, these nurses, these frontline workers. This is the tragedy, and at least that has been brought to the surface. But other than that, like I say, this is just a normal flu season. It is absolutely nothing to worry about, and we're following the same trajectory, and it is going to die away in the summer. But like I say, the media right now, the media are hungry, and they are going to turn on these politicians when they dig into this story and they realize the business losses, the job losses, the suicides, the domestic violence. Boy oh boy, the numbers that are going to come out of that will far, far, far exceed those of this outbreak. What about all the people who missed surgery? What about all the people who had cancer operations, had chemo coming up? Look at all the people who are going to die from that because they didn't get tested appropriately in a timely manner. When you think of the backlog of people that will be waiting to get into hospital, it will be insane. there will be more people will die from that, just trying to catch up, than from the outbreak. And that, my friends, is a stunning tragedy. So yes, these politicians had better pin their ears back. And also these chief medical officers, these people who perpetuated this lie, is absolutely incredible. Anyway, let's just flip over to this article. I'll read through that and I'll come back and do a quick wrap up. Okie dokie, here we go. Okay, so here we are from the National Post. A business and health leaders accuse Trudeau of shifting the goalposts for reopening the economy. Ottawa. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has been shifting the goalposts in justifying the lockdowns over CV, whilst portraying as selfish any hopes to reopen an increasingly damaged economy, a coalition of health experts and business executives say. The Macdonald-Laurier Institute released a letter dated May 14th and co-signed by several business and health leaders, which said, "The Liberal government has presented social distancing measures as a stark choice. Either selflessly shut down the economy to save lives, or selfishly worry about the economy and condemn thousands to a vicious illness." But that approach oversimplifies the decision facing governments and is being pursued at an almost incalculably large cost to the well-being of Canadians, according to the letter, which was co-signed by 24 health professionals and business executives. The letter comes amid some debate around the severity and length of economic shutdowns across Canada, which have shuttered the majority of businesses, put millions of people out of work, and obliterated corporate and government balance sheets. While some form of lockdown is widely believed to be a necessary measure in response to CV, some people are questioning whether more limited shutdowns could have been equally as effective in keeping the healthcare system from being overwhelmed. It is becoming clearer and clearer that the fear we experienced at the beginning when we knew so little about the virus is exaggerated, said Brian Lee Crowley, Managing Director of MLI. We can rein that back now. Provincial governments are responsible for lifting economic restrictions which were enforced under provincial emergency orders. But in an interview, Crowley said the tone in Ottawa has been conflicting with its provincial counterparts, which threatens to slow any efforts to return the economy to full capacity. What's happening now is they're convincing people to continue being afraid when what we need is a message of reassurance and confidence from government, he said. They're contributing to an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty that is completely unhelpful as we try to move forward a more measured response to the virus. Crowley and others stress that it is important not to understate the real health risks from the outbreak. But the letter stresses that economic considerations should not merely be dismissed as callous, particularly in the face of evidence suggesting that the economic shock has taken a very heavy toll on people's mental and physical health, not to mention a rise in domestic abuse and other forms of violence. As of early May, nearly 8 million Canadians had applied for federal financial support after losing employment. Stock markets and public pension funds have faced a pummeling in recent months, wiping away vast sums of wealth and savings. And that is absolutely true. The devastation that will be caused from that alone. And I think I've mentioned it will take me about 2 years. 2 years to catch up for this 3 months of lockdown. And I will not be spending any extra money in that period. Further complicating the issue, the letter says, thresholds for a return to normal continue to shift. Ottawa has declined to endorse the reopening of the economy even as hospitals remain well below capacity, the metric that was initially used to justify the restrictions. The rationale for the lockdown seems to have morphed subtly from managing the outbreak by flattening the curve to preventing the illness from infecting Canadians at all, pushing the timeline for a return to some economic activity into the summer and a return to normal a year or more into the distance, the letter said. Dr. Neil Rao, an infectious disease specialist and medical microbiologist in Oakville, Ontario, said there is a growing chorus of medical professionals beginning to question strict lockdowns that have carried on for months. They're not the only ones. More people are taking the view that the risk-benefit calculation here, where you avert the risk of transmission in return for suppressing the economy, that it's not a worthwhile sacrifice, said Rao, who was not a signatory to the letter. Part of the challenge facing governments, he says, is the blistering success with which people initially adhered to the lockdowns. We spook people so well into staying home to avoid social contact that it is extremely difficult now to reverse that message. Sweden has become a focal point in the debate over what degree of lockdown is necessary and reasonable, after it took a relaxed view on social restrictions, allowing bars and restaurants to stay open, as well as school for younger people. CV-related deaths in the country are currently higher than neighbouring countries, but Swedish health experts expect that mortality rates over the long term will come out more or less equal to much of the developed world, which adhered to strict lockdown at the higher economic cost than Sweden incurred. And you can see that's absolutely true. Sweden's bell curve is very slightly higher, but again, it is well within the parameters of normal. Dr. Mike Ryan, emergencies expert at the World Health Organization, acknowledged, there you go, World Health Organization acknowledged recently that Sweden's approach could become a future model for virus lockdowns, with the caveat that viral infection would have to become the new normal under such a scenario. So there you have it, folks. Not a big deal at all. Nothing to see here. Let's go back to work, let's get this economy opened up again, and let's avoid the depression. Now that is a pretty sensible article, and of course the Globe and Mail had an article the other day asking, was the outbreak as serious as we thought it was? And so yes, times are changing and people are waking up very, very quickly to the sheer nonsense of being locked down in your own home under house arrest. The talk of forced vaccination, tracking apps, hiring contact tracers. Are you kidding me? What is this some kind of communist state? Have we gone back to Nazism? What the hell are you talking about? And everyone I talked to, I was out today, everyone I talked to is as mad as hell about all this. There's going to be heads rolling over this, I can assure you. There will be heads rolling over it. And if you ever try and pull a stunt like this again and scare the people, the terrorization of people is absolutely unbelievable. The children that you've terrorized because of all of this. Get a grip, for God's sake. I am absolutely, I am taken aback by the idiocy of this. Now, don't get me wrong, I can see initially that, well, yes, we didn't know anything about this. We didn't know anything about this. It could have been the big one. And so shutting it down for 2 weeks or a month is absolutely prudent. And I don't think anybody had any question about that at all. And of course, again, I don't want to take away from the tragedy of people dying from this outbreak. That is very real. This was a very real situation, there's no doubt about it. However, when the data comes in and the data does not live up to the predictions, then you have to be strong enough in the mind to be able to change direction and go, hey, we've got new data in. And like I say, I'm going to put this chart up again, the last 10 years of flu, because this is the definitive document. It tells you exactly what is going on and that there is nothing out of the ordinary here. Okay, so bear this in mind, and please, I hope you've learned this lesson that scientists and experts are not always right, and the predictive models, well, hey, just before we go, I'll put up another predictive model. This is all the crazy temperature predictions that were coming out of climate change. And look at them all. They're all over the place. And you can see the bold line in the center is the average, and then you look down below and you see the real readings. This is the observed readings, and they're nowhere near any of the predictions. And why is this? And that's because scientists were paid to look for warming. And so that's what they did. And they created models that exaggerated the warming effect. And now, of course, we're going back into cooling, but that is for another video. And it's going to be stunning how these so-called experts have rolled back that narrative too. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like, comment and subscribe below. And in the meantime, this is Hound Dog Steve signing off, wishing you a very pleasant evening, and we'll talk very, very shortly. You take care now. See ya. Bye.